Hey guys, Herman Morris from Alpha One here, welcoming you to the first episode of Firearms 101. In this episode, we're going to start with handguns. Okay, so what's a handgun? Basically, the definition of a handgun is any firearm that can be fired with just one hand, ergo, handgun. Okay, simple enough. So, like I mentioned in the introduction though, I'm going to keep this very simple. I'm going to follow the 80-20 rule, which I'm just basically going to focus on the 80% of things that you're more than likely to come across or to actually see. Even if you're not an expert in firearms, you have little to no background in this. There's a lot of exceptions to a lot of things. But I want the vast majority of people that watch these videos to at least have a good working knowledge of the most common things that they're actually going to come across out there, whether it's at a gun shop or in a conversation or whatever it might be. So when we're starting with handguns and we know what a handgun is, again, a firearm that can be fired with just one hand, then we want to talk about what are the most common types of handguns that you're going to come across. Okay, so the biggest and most common these days that everyone's seen either in person or in movies or whatever are going to be revolvers and pistols. Okay, now while we're still talking about definitions, all right, I just said pistols. A lot of people use handgun and pistol interchangeably. That's actually incorrect. Okay, so all pistols are handguns, but not all handguns are pistols, right? So what's the difference? Well, this handgun, which is a revolver, again, one of the main types that we're going to discuss, this is a Smith & Wesson 629 in 44 Magnum. This is a type of handgun. It's a revolver. We're going to go through these in a minute here, okay? And then a pistol is basically this, a semi-auto. Well, again, it doesn't have to be a semi-auto. Actually, pistol technically has to have just one chamber, all right? And so when we refer to pistols, is we're usually talking about this style of a handgun, this style of a firearm, which is single chamber semi-auto. That's what we're talking about when you hear pistol. Okay, we'll go through some of these things here and there, but there's a lot of minutia that's not even worth getting into. Just understand that this is a pistol. It's also a handgun. Okay, this is also a handgun, but it's a revolver, not a pistol. Okay, clear as mud. Cool. All right, so we're going to jump on the tabletop view so that we can actually go through the parts in for revolvers and for pistols, and then we'll move on from there. All right, here we are on my workbench, and we're going to start with going over the main parts of a revolver. Almost all handguns have some similar things in common when it comes to the parts, which is you have a frame and you have a barrel. All right, but there's a lot of smaller components, and I'm not going to go as deep as you could, given that this is a mechanical, object. There's a ton of little tiny parts and pieces and whatever, but I want you to understand or be aware of the most important and the most basic. All right. So on the frame you have this grip, and the grip is made up of the front strap and the back strap. Okay. So we're moving up here. You can see the trigger right there. This is the trigger guard around it. It prevents things from getting in there and possibly discharging the weapon unintentionally. Right, this thing right here is a cylinder latch. Okay, this is a modern revolver, so this has a cylinder latch. It's not a break open or anything. I'll show you how that works in a minute. You have the hammer right here. You have the cylinder. And then moving forward, you have the barrel. And you have a front sight and a rear sight. If you want to see how the cylinder latch works, this just pressing in allows you to open up the cylinder, and this is where the cartridges would go. And here is the extractor, which pressing down on this ejects the cartridges, whether they have been spent or not. That's how you would unload it. You also have these plates right here, which are the recoil shields. Okay, so that's pretty much the main parts of a modern revolver. So let's move on to a pistol. Okay, so I have these again. Remember we talked about The frame, that's the frame of a pistol. This is a Glock 17 frame. And I put these apart just so that it'd be easier for you to see them. This is the slide. As I'm sure all of you have seen how that works. Basically, the slide just reciprocates over the top of the frame as it's being fired. And in that slide, inside of that slide, you have this, you have the barrel. Okay. Barrel goes in here. Okay. And what allows that slide to reciprocate and to go back and forth and feed a new round into the chamber is this recoil spring and guide rod. Okay, that fits in here. And to put this back on, you just slide the slide right back on into the frame. Okay. In many pistols, you're going to see some sort of mechanism to be able to remove this slide. In this case, Glocks have these two little levers that you have to press down to be able to remove the slide. You have here the slide lock. When you bring it back, as you press up, this locks the slide back. It also releases. Okay. You also have a trigger guard. You have a trigger. There are varying types of triggers here. So this one has a trigger safety. As you can see that little dingus in there. We'll talk about safeties and triggers and all of that in a later episode. Moving on, we have a magazine release. Okay, this is what inside of this magazine well is where you would fit a magazine. Okay, I have this magazine. It's actually not for this particular pistol. I just had another one lying around here. And it's not technically part of the pistol, but it's associated, so it's also important to know. This is a magazine. This goes inside of the mag well. This feeds the rounds into the chamber, and it's made up of the body or housing. Okay, you have a base plate or floor plate, and here is the follower. Okay, and that has a spring inside as well. Okay, so that in a nutshell are the parts of some modern handguns, both a pistol and a revolver. All right, guys, that was a quick and dirty overview of revolvers and pistols, their parts. Very, very simple stuff. Stay tuned for the next episode in which we're going to go over the types of actions that you're going to encounter most commonly with revolvers and pistols. See you then.